Hey everyone, I wanted to quickly go over my quick reactions and the breakdown of what we got in this Monster Hunter Rise demo that Capcom finally decided to drop on us right after the Monster Hunter digital event that they showcased earlier today. Right away, I have to say I feel like impressions are extremely strong. It feels like, yes, this is definitely a different build that we've seen prior. It definitely visually looks different. I believe that dynamic scaling is actually being implemented properly, unlike probably some of the gameplay we had seen before. That's actually one of the things that I talked about in my reactions video towards the trailer, where we saw a lot of the shadowy effects and a lot of just the different visuals shift a little bit. I'm not saying that it looks worse than before, but it definitely now looks like a Switch game. I think before they were probably showing us the PC build. I'm kind of convinced on that, or just maybe the Switch Pro if that's actually a thing. But realistically speaking, I feel like this is definitely the build that we were supposed to have been seeing from the get-go, but now they decided to showcase it. The game does in fact look a bit dialed back. That's just kind of the way that I perceive it. Performance is stable though. That's actually one of the things that's probably the biggest takeaways that I have, is that one of the things going into this game, and one of the reasons that I talked about several times, that this game probably would have not sold well if it had terrible performance or if it wasn't stable. That's not the case. This game runs extremely well. It doesn't necessarily look sharp all the time. The dynamic scaling does seem to kick in when you're playing multiplayer, specifically with 4 players. And it does seem to drop down resolution rather heavily, maybe to somewhere like 900, maybe even 720p. But overall, I feel like the game looks clean enough for most of the time. And if a lot of people are going to be playing solo, that's never going to be a problem for them. And again, I'm just specifically talking about resolution. Character detail and even monster detail in general is very sharp and very clean. That's actually one of the things that I praised about the demo, where the monster detail in general just seems very good. These new renders for each one of the returning monsters that had to be basically upscaled from the original 3DS entries and even PSP definitely look very clean. Again, they're not the 3D renders. This isn't even close to like a Pokemon Sword and Shield type of situation. These are brand new renders. They definitely look brand new, but they definitely look way more detailed than ever before. And the monsters by default just basically look way better than they did, which is definitely great to see. The maps in general, at the very least the one that we've seen in the demo, it looks sharp enough. I have no real issues with it. I think we've seen enough gameplay of it already that it's kind of a little bit tiresome. I do want to see a lot of the other maps, specifically the ones that we haven't seen, going into the sand map and even the fire map that we're supposed to be seeing in the near future. You know, but I definitely would have liked to see maybe the flooded forest, or even the new ice map, the whatever islands, whatever they're called, I keep forgetting their name, just because it would have maybe given us a bit something more to look forward to. But ultimately, we do have 4 monsters in this demo: Arceus, Great Isuchi, Mitsusune, and Rathian. I think Great Isuchi is pretty much a kind of just beat him up and be done with it type of monster. He doesn't necessarily put much of a fight. Arceus definitely does, but it's kind of like an off quest type of thing, and perhaps a lot of people are gonna miss that. The fact that there's 2 monsters per quest, and actually if you do the intermediate one, Great Isuchi does show up in that quest as well. But there's no real marker telling you like, hey, you can do these other monsters if you decide to just kind of tackle, you know, the other side objectives. It's just kind of like there's that red marker, follow the arrow, go take the monster that the quest tells you to take down. And I feel like that's a little bit off-putting for a lot of people. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I feel like if they're just following the arrow the entire time, it kind of falls back into being the Fireflies. Like if you're following the arrow, you're basically doing the Fireflies bit, where you're just following the marker that tells you where to go. I'm not a big fan of that. I kind of like the entire idea of like, I know the monster is in zone 9, let me just find my way to get there, instead of just having to follow specifically an arrow, because then people just kind of tunnel vision into following the arrow and they never really get to explore the map. Although that's kind of like one of the points for the demo, is for you to be able to explore it. I don't necessarily understand why Capcom is still putting limits on demos. That just doesn't make any sense. First of all, the demo basically goes away at the beginning of February, so that's bizarre in and of itself. Kind of like Nintendo with their arbitrary 6 months of a video game release, and then it just goes back into the vault. That doesn't make any sense at all, especially in 2021 or whatever, or even if you're watching this in the future, like 2022, 2023. It doesn't make any sense, period. At this point in time, it doesn't help. But then on top of that, you have this arbitrary 30 quest limiter, that if you basically just do 30 quests, the game kind of like basically locks you up from being able to do any further quest. Now the funny thing is, if you actually delete your save data or you boot up the demo with a different profile, you can automatically do another 30 quests. So for people like me who have like 6 different profiles because I have different, accounts, access to different eShops around the world, that's not necessarily a problem. I could, keep playing. Or if I just decide to delete my save data and, keep playing, that's not a problem. But a lot of people just have their one main account, and if they don't necessarily know that you can delete your save, they're probably just gonna end up doing the 30 quests and just be done with it. Although there's a other side of it where people just kind of just play the game and check out the 2, 3 to 4 quests and just kind of be done with it. So it is what it is. I am a bit taken back of just how much of the menus you have to scroll through to be able to get just so much of the detail and the data. There's just so many things hidden in the menus. Monster portraits, details for the monsters, controls, the options. There's so many things in those menus that probably gonna go all over a lot of people's heads if they don't necessarily check them out. I'm literally the type of player that boots up a game and the first thing that I do is I go into the menu and I check out the options. I know a lot of people aren't like that. They just kind of like pick easy, middle, and hard and they just jump right in. But as I was, going through the menus, I was kind of overwhelmed and taken back at just how many things there are to, boxes to check and options to look into. A little bit too much, to be quite honest. But ultimately, I feel like the demo does seem to have like just about every option you could ever ask for. You can change your controls, you can change the way you go through about the menus, you can change the way the game decides to kind of like showcase you information. The UI, the HUD, you can definitely tweak a lot of it. You can definitely dial back those annoying voices. Look, the dub is fine. I have no issues with the dub. It's the way that these characters kind of enunciate things. I find them off-putting. Although apparently one of the voices for the characters is apparently Goku, like the person who does the dub for Goku, which is like, okay, why? I don't know if that's a meme, but he definitely sounds like Goku, which was crazy to me to hear. But yeah, I found it to be funny. I guess the last thing that I'll touch upon is the online multiplayer. It does seem to have that issue of like you have to have a lot of people to play with if you want to have a good time. Playing with pugs just kind of sucks. That's just kind of been Monster Hunter in general if you decide to play online. Not necessarily fun if you're playing with people who just kind of never checked out the menus, never went through the training, never actually did anything, and they just kind of, jumped into the game, the demo, whatever it is, and just, decided to figure it out as they go along, and they don't necessarily know the weapons. Not a good time. You're not gonna have a great time. Probably playing with people or just going into a subreddit or a Discord probably is a better idea to find a pug with people that actually kind of understand what they're trying to do, especially if you're trying to do those off monsters. If you're trying to do Rathian or Arzuros, instead of just following the freaking arrow, they understand that you're trying to do other things than just the main monster. So worth keeping an eye on if you're like interested in just going into a subreddit or a Discord to just play with other people and not necessarily deal with the pugs, because man, they're just not very smart. At least the couple of experiences that I did online, they were not fun. So that's just perhaps my personal experience. Overall though, like I said, man, this demo feels like a home run. It feels like a great first entry to the Switch. Definitely interested to see what Capcom decides to put out further along. There's gonna be a lot more information. We definitely know there's 2 more trailers coming, and the Twitter information is just gonna skyrocket. So we're gonna definitely be able to see a lot more. And if you're following my channel already, you know that I'm gonna be pulling out a lot of more information already. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.